I'm going to walk you through the steps on how to create the first part in Activity 4.2 model creation. So the first part that we're going to create looks like this, and I've highlighted the front view of that part because that's what we're going to start with in geometry. So don't worry about that right now, but that's why mine is blue right there, because we're going to use that when we sketch it. The first thing I'm going to have you do is set up a new project file. So I'm going to go to New, and I'm going to click right on here on Projects. And what projects do is they give you they give the system a way for you to keep your files organized. And so I'm going to go ahead and click New, and I'm going to click Single User Project. And for this project, I'm just going to type in IED underscore practice. Alright, and then I'm going to find a folder on my H drive, and I'm going to make a new folder when I'm inside of that H drive, and I'm going to call that folder IED practice. Now, anytime that we are doing anything for just practice in class, it's not part of a real project, any activities or anything like that that we do, you will make sure that you are saving all of your parts inside this IED practice folder. And so when I'm finished with that, I'll go ahead and click Next, and I'll click Finish. It's telling me that that is not the active project, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and then I'll go ahead and double click on IED practice to make sure that IED practice is the project file that we're using, and we know that because it has a check mark by it. So I'm done with that. When I'm finished with that, I'll go ahead and click Done, and we're ready to start creating our part. And so I'm going to go ahead and click Standard IPT and hit Create. Again, my window will open, and again, this is the part we're going to create. And so we're going to start by drawing the geometry for the front view, the section that's highlighted in blue here. And so I'm going to go ahead and click Create a New Sketch, and we're going to create our sketch in our YZ plane. All right, I'm going to get the Line tool, and I'm going to click on the origin here, and I'm going to click and drag a line up, and I'm not going to click to place the second point of that line, and I'm going to make it just like in our drawing. It says 1.5 inches. I'm going to click the right view here, or I can zoom in and out with the scroll on my mouse. Now I'm going to go in the width dimension here, and I'm going to make a dimension of 1 inch. So that is for this 1 inch on our part. And I'm just going to continue sketching out that geometry. From there, it is 1 inch high. So I'm going to go up in the height dimension 1 inch. I'm going to go over in the width dimension now 2 inches. Down in the height dimension 1 inch. Over in the width dimension 1 inch. Down in the width dimension 1.5, and I can also just come over to this line and see that it's the right distance. I will then go over in the width dimension 0.5, up in the width dimension 0.5, and then I can go over in the width dimension 3 inches. But if I look at my drawing, I can't see because the dimension between this point right here and this point are not defined. But I can see that there's a 1/2 inch on this side and a 1/2 inch on this side, and there's 4 inches in the middle. And so I can figure out that it's 3 inches by taking 4 inches minus this 1/2 inch and this 1/2 inch, so it's 3 inches here in that width. And so I'll go ahead and type in that 3. I'll draw a line down, and I'll connect back to my origin. And notice when I do that, that all my lines become blue, and I have a fully constrained down here in the bottom right corner of my drawing. And so we put in our height and our width dimension, so I'll go ahead and click Finish Sketch. And now we can add that depth dimension to it. And so if I look at my object, the overall depth of this is 2.5 inches. And so I can click now Extrude, and I can tell it which direction I want to extrude. And so let's say we want it to go back the other direction. I can click that, and I can type in to add an extrusion feature to my add that feature to my sketch. So it creates the solid geometry for it. So I'll go ahead and click OK when I'm finished with that. The next thing that I can add is this little piece that's hanging out of the side over here. And so I have to make sure my drawing's oriented correctly. And so it's on the other side of my object. So I'll click and I will turn my object, rotate it. I can do that several ways. I can do it with the free orbit tool. I can do it by clicking and rotating my view cube until I get to the side I want. And I can go ahead and I can click right on that edge to make a sketch on that surface. Alright, and so when I have that, I'm just going to click this arrow to orient the view the way I want. I'm going to grab the rectangle tool and I'm going to draw a rectangle on the object. And in this case, all of my dimensions are green, and so I just made it the approximate size of the object. Once I have that, I can go ahead and add some constraints to it. So I'm going to add some dimensional constraints in this case. So I'm going to click and put a dimension on there, and I click to place the dimension, and I can type in the dimension I want. So I want that to be 0.75. I want it to be from this edge 0.5. I want it to be 1.5 inches in total depth. And the last dimension I want, it's going to be another the next dimension I want to include, and it says one dimension needed down here, is the overall height of the object. And so I'll click these two lines and I'll drag that out, and it should be 0.25 inches. And so when I have that created based on my drawing, I can go ahead and click Finish Sketch. I can click Extrude. I can select the geometry that I want, and I can select the extrusion depth I want. And so the extrusion depth in this case is 0.75. So I can go ahead and click OK, and then I can look at my object. So I can click that home view. If I click on the front view in my view cube, notice how this isn't the real front view of the object. This should be the front view. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on that view, and I'm going to say Set Current View as Front. And so when I do that, now this is the front view of my object based on the way that I sketched it. If I click my home view, it'll go to that front left top view of the object. So that's how you create the first part in Inventor. So you'll want to go ahead and save that part now. So I'll go to File. I'll go to Save As, and notice how it's putting it inside my IED practice folder. That's because we set up that project file at the beginning. And I'll go ahead and name this as A42 Part 1, and then I'll include my initials. Let's make that A42 for Activity 42. Part number 1, and then your initials. And so I'll go ahead and click Save when I'm ready to save that. You'll also want to get a screenshot of the part and upload it to Canvas.